Well, hey friends, welcome to a Tackle Talk episode of Team Jesus Outdoors. Hey, I know every one of you guys have reached into your crankbait box at one point or another, only to pull out a crankbait that you haven't touched in a couple years, only to find that your hooks are rusted and you've got some rust on the painted surface of the crankbait. Or you got those crankbaits that are just all beat up, and what the heck do you do with them when there's no paint finish left on them? Well, a lot of us send our crankbaits out to get painted. So today I am so excited. Today I'm unboxing 10 baits that I just got back from the Jig Shack. Jig Shack custom painted crankbaits. You can find them on Facebook. Search Facebook for the Jig Shack custom crankbaits. So first these are getting pretty hard to come by. These are the old thin warts, the old Storm thin warts. It's the thin flat-sided version of a wiggle wart. I had a few of these and some old Storm crawfish patterns. But look at that paint job. That is just incredible artwork. Now that's what I call a crawfish pattern right there. That's a beautiful crankbait. I had also sent them some Rapala DT10s and DT16s to get a bluegill paint job. And that's a good looking bluegill paint scheme if I ever saw one. Hey, winter's the time of year when I do my tackle maintenance. Now here's a regular Storm wiggle wart. You can find these on these are all pre-Rapala Storm wiggle warts. I had a few of these from way back in the day. You can find them on eBay too, but they're getting pretty doggone pricey on eBay. Here's another one of the thin warts. I had this one painted in the bluegill color. Here's another Rapala DT16 that once again I had painted in the bluegill color. Those are just beautiful. Here's another one of the thin warts. I had this one painted in the bluegill color. In the summertime I fish a lot of clear water, so every crankbait I throw, I'm going to throw in a shad pattern or a crawfish pattern or a bluegill pattern. That's about the only colors of crankbaits that I buy. And one of my favorite all-time crankbaits is a Bandit 200. I had a dozen of these Bandit 200s out in the garage all beat up. And then here's a Rapala DT10, and this one again in the crawfish pattern. Another Rapala DT10, this one in the bluegill pattern. And finally, last but not least, another Bandit 200, and this one in the bluegill pattern. I love Bandit 200s and Bandit 300s. Some of my absolute favorite crankbaits. So we've got a wiggle wart, one painted each color. Got a Bandit 200 painted in each color. A Rapala DT10 painted in each color. Rapala DT16 both painted bluegill. And some Storm thin warts, one painted each color. Now I left the split rings on, and they removed the split rings for me. But I took the hooks on. In fact, I threw all the hooks away. None of the hooks were in good enough shape. A few of the hooks were still original hooks. And my only complaint about the only complaint I've ever had about Bandit crankbaits is that they come with garbage hooks. So we're replacing all the hooks today. We're going to replace them with KVD Mustad triple grips, short shanks, short shank 2X. And we're gonna go with Owner Hyperwire split rings. Now some of these split rings were in pretty decent shape. Actually, some of the split rings were in very good shape. So I may use a few of the split rings just for line ties. But the hooks and the split rings that hold the hooks on, they're all getting replaced. If you're going to be replacing hooks, you've got to have a pair of Exeron split ring pliers. These are the best split ring pliers I've ever laid my hands on. I got a couple pair of them. I keep a pair in the boat, and I keep a pair here at the house. Just phenomenal split ring pliers. Most of the split ring pliers I've bought and tried over the years, I've thrown them in the garbage. But these suckers work. Now that is one beautiful Rapala DT16. It only makes me sad that I won't be able to throw that for about 6 months. You know, back in the 90s, you'd have a whole box of crankbaits. Get a little water in them, you wouldn't notice it until the end of the season when you pull that box out of your boat. You'd have a whole box of crankbaits with rusted hooks and rusted split rings and rust all over the paint job. And a lot of times you just throw them out.
Say what?
You know, back then your average plug was running $4 or $5, $6 or $7 for more expensive, some of the more expensive plugs. But shoot, with the price of crankbaits today, you can't afford to throw crankbaits out anymore. So you set them off for $10 for a good paint job. Put a couple bucks worth of good hardware on them. And you got yourself a crankbait that's better than new. Hey, it's also worth mentioning that the Jig Shack not only paints crankbaits, but they also sell tungsten weights. They actually have some really high quality tungsten. You can buy them painted or unpainted. It's just about the only place now that I buy my tungsten bullet weights, flipping weights, even my Carolina rig weights. Well, it looks like I'm out of number 6 hooks and I'm out of split rings. So I guess I'm done for the night. But hey friends, you can tell a whole lot about a man by how he spends his time and how he spends his money. And like many of you, I spend way too much of my free time and way too much of my disposable income chasing little green fish. But for many of us, whether it's fishing season or the off season, it's all we can think about. If I'm not on the water, I'm usually thinking about being on the water. Hey, you know, it's no different. It's no different with faith, honestly. You can tell a whole lot about people by how they tend to spend their time and how they spend their money. People that claim to have faith in the Lord, people that claim to be Christians, yet don't spend any of their time in the church, don't spend any of their money tithing or on charity. You know, you have to wonder. God expects those that are following Him to use their time, their talent, and their resources to forward the kingdom. If you find that you got some hard baits that are ready for a new paint job, take a look at the Jig Shack on Facebook. They do an incredible job. These are beautiful paint jobs. This is the prettiest crawfish pattern I think I've ever seen right here. They do several different crawfish patterns. Just this one was my favorite. This crawfish wigglewort is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So anyway, take a look at Jig Shack. And hey, get your family in church. Find a good church for you and your family to worship God and be a part of the team that's forwarding God's kingdom. Good luck on the water. God bless. We'll see you.